Hey everybody, welcome back to Real Talk with Marcellus. Man, y'all in for it today. I ain't gonna lie to you. We have a real guest, Daniel Llorente. Everybody, bring it up. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Marcellus. My name is Daniel Llorente. I guess I do a lot. Well, first of all, married to a wonderful wife for 18 years. Got 3 kids, 16, 13, and 8.
Ooh,
So boy, and then girl. My oldest is about to go to college, so preparing for that.
he's about to go to college?
Yeah, next year.
I feel old.
Yeah, so gonna take up computer science like his dad, right? So probably a good caveat to that. So I do IT work, mainly software development. Been doing that for definitely over 20 years. 22 years or so. I'm also in the military reserve as a chaplain. Been doing that for 12 years now. And then I'm an associate pastor at our local church here.
Oh,
been
you
doing
got a
that.
lot of jobs.
Got a lot of jobs. So,
Oh, you dad, husband, IT.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know how you know what? Sleep has come up multiple times in
Yeah.
the last. If you haven't seen our other episodes, go back and watch them. By the way, the crew people told me you need to. We on Spotify and YouTube, so go check them out. But sleep has come up often.
Yeah.
How do you manage all of that, being a dad and a husband, and still find time to rest?
Sure. So let's start with the sleep part. So one, waking up early. I know we said sleep, but I start with waking up early.
Okay.
And I've been talking to some people. For me, at least, the reason why waking up early is important because one, I get to do a lot of things right away. So I'll do my workouts in the morning, prep in the morning, do all that stuff. Take care of the kids going to school. I work from home pretty much most of the time, or if not all the time these days. And then do work and all that. And then what happens is because I wake up so early, like I'm a 5 o'clock guy. By the time 10 o'clock rolls around, my body goes, you're about to go down. Right. So I'll do my best. Sometimes I'll drink an energy drink or maybe sleep in the afternoon to stay up for whatever reason. But the moment I lie down just to kind of rest, my body goes, oh, you already lie down. Now you're going to bed. And then it just naturally happens. And I have very good deep sleep. And then I wake up again, start all over again. So to me, what helps me with my sleep is starting my day early. Now, obviously, it doesn't always happen that way, but that's the routine I have. And then as far as getting rest, well, definitely, my wife does a good amount of helping with that. Like she moves a lot of things out of the way because she knows I do those 3 things. So, I do the IT work, I do my military stuff, I do the pastor stuff. And part of my pastor stuff right now is teaching as well. So I'm teaching a business communications class at our small private college.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to take that.
So Jeannie, like my wife moves a lot of that stuff out of the way that could be an obstacle.
Yeah.
So she's a big help on that one. Of course, the kids too. Like I have good kids. Like I probably need to give more credit to those kids, but
Wow.
but they're kids. They do things sometimes they're not supposed to, but they definitely are low maintenance, which adds to the ability for me to do all these things.
If you had to, no, I won't do that to you. No, I'll ask. If you had to let something go for the sake of something, what would it be?
Wow, that is so. What I've told my wife is, first of all, however I provide for the family, that'll be the last to go.
I know that's right.
So I'm gonna have to figure out the other thing. So some people are sometimes concerned, like, will you let go of being a pastor? If it gets to a point where I'm starting like that, God's probably already telling me to maybe move aside for a little bit because my priority is my family, right? So I'll probably either the military chaplaincy or my pastor job will probably be, depending on which one, will probably be the first ones to go. But
I've had a lot of preacher boy friends, going as they always say, no, church is everything, and God is like, as far as priorities go, I'm pretty sure it's family,
yes,
and I think a lot more people need to hear that.
right. Now, I will say I do have to be sensitive to that though, because just because my IT job pays well, that may not necessarily be the job that God tells me to hold on to provide for my family. So it could be the military chaplaincy. It could be the pastor role. But the point is, kind of what you said, if it gets too heavy, I'm going to have to figure out what to let go first. And the one thing I have to consider is I need to hold on to the thing that'll take care of my family.
Wow.
Right? Because that's who God gave me a steward over first.
Wow.
Those are the people. So, but that's my view on that.
There's a couple of things I've stolen from our talks that I don't think you know about, that I've almost probably rebranded from myself. And if you've ever heard me talk about this, it didn't come from me. It came from him. Can you talk about, and it's my favorite role on the planet for a while, reconstitution and reconstituting yourself.
Okay.
And how frequent you should do that in your 20s or 30s.
So that's not original to me either. I actually learned that in the military.
Really?
Yes. In the military, well, at least when I first came in, they had this thing called reconstitution days. So there's a time I was gone for 3 months, right? And then there's like almost
Hold
like
on.
a mandated.
Barkley, I swear, if you take him out. Sorry.
No, you're good. There's almost like a required reconstitution day. So we'll be on for like 2 weeks. And then they go, all right, we're going to have a reconstitution day. And it's like they pretty much just leave us alone. Now, obviously, we still have to make sure everybody is accounted for, everybody shows up and stuff, but they just give us that day. So it's to do laundry, to do, buy groceries, whatever it is. But of course, for when I was there, I was with a lot of chaplains. So it's like, hey, whatever you need to do to, kind of regain your spiritual strength. And I think sometimes we don't think about that, the spiritual strength part. We know about getting your physical strength back, your mental health back. But spiritual strength is a lot of times we don't take that into consideration. Now, people will be like, well, I'm not religious or not this. The way I want to define it, especially if you're not religious, whatever makes you say, I'm going to get up today and I'm going to live this day and I'm going to go through it. So whatever you get your spirit to just let you get out and do stuff, that's the part you have to strengthen. So obviously for me, for you, it's our spiritual faith, right?
Yeah.
So Jesus Christ is a big part of that. Holy Spirit is the one that gets us going, right? And then listening to the Father and his instruction. So we can use that. But the thing is, how often are you resting and replenishing that spiritual strength? For people who aren't religious, that could be a cup of coffee. Sometimes you might just need a cup of coffee just to get yourself started. I kind of like, what one of your guests is just, that's how I start my day, because if I don't get up early, if I don't do my morning routine right away, whatever that is.
You have to go back and watch the episode.
Yeah.
It was good. But
she does her morning routine twice, right?
Yeah.
And she gets her workout in. If she doesn't do that, and water too. If she doesn't do that, she's not all there. So the idea behind a reconstitution day, I actually think it's really more for your spiritual health first. And once that's good to go, your mental and your physical strength follows after that.
That's good. Okay. You mentioned that you worked in IT. Now, every IT person I know, especially in software development, they always got a good game system set up. Do you have any?
I mean, it's not the best game system, but it'll run things.
Really?
Well, so here's the thing. I am somewhat cheap, like in how I spend money, right? So, I'm always one of those middle of the pack guys. Like, I don't want it to be terrible where I'm just going to get mad because lag or, frame rate or whatever is going to keep me from playing the game. But I'm not like, it has to be realistic. The water has to look like this and the hair has to flow like that.
Oh, wow.
Because that's like, there are video cards now that are over $1,000 just for the video card. Yeah.
People pay $1,000 just for the experience.
More.
Oh, calm down.
And then on top of that, do you want to run 1080p, 2K, 4K? I'm not all about that. I just want to make sure it runs smoothly. My internet is good. So right now I have 2 machines that I play PC games on. And then I have a PS5 as well. And then we have a Switch. So, kind of gaming household.
What's your favorite, PS5 or the computer setup?
It depends.
Really?
So what I like about the PS5 are the games unique to the PS5 or PlayStation rather. So I'm a big Gran Turismo fan.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I would have never. Okay.
Well, it helps my I like cars a lot. And if you're a car guy, Gran Turismo, I think even more than Forza. Now I'm gonna get probably some haters out there, but for me, if you're a car guy, Gran Turismo should be part of and you're a gamer, that should be part of your library.
What's your dream car?
So I drive one of them now.
Oh, talk about success. Okay.
Well, no. So I bought the cheapest car in my list.
Okay.
Which is the WRX. So I have a Subaru WRX. To me, that's kind of like, and then the next one up there would probably be like the new Z, the Nissan Z. If you're a Gran Turismo person, the Nissan R34, Skyline GTR R34. But right now they're starting to bring him in from Japan, but it's so overpriced, like $200,000, $300,000. And that car brand new originally would be like around $60,000, $80,000. Yeah, so Nissan GTRs, even the ones that they sell here are pretty expensive now too. Like I remember when they brought the GTR here for the first time, it was like maybe $65,000, $75,000. Now they're like $150,000. So, the other car on my list would be like an Audi.
You're an Audi guy?
R8. Audi R8.
So let me geek out for a second.
Yeah.
So the only reason I got mine
Yeah.
is because I fitted it and it was a luxury car.
Yeah.
And I could never find it. So when I saw it, I quickly switched because it was going to go fast.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I love driving. So it's an Audi A8. And it's not new. It's not new. But I love driving it. Yeah. It is fast and it's smooth.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
There's something about the German brands on how they... like my brother has a BMW 335.
Oh.
And it's twin turbo. And that definitely... But it's smooth though. It's not jerky. Yeah. Like you're going fast, but you're comfortable fast. Like I'd even say for my WRX, it's a jerky kind of fast. But that's probably the boy racer in me. It's like I got a lot of friends who are like, hey, you bought like a teenager's car. I go, well, I got a teenager brain.
I know that's right.
So
that's cool.
Yeah. So going back to the rig, so I played the PS5. There are definitely some games like God of War is good on there. I'm a Metal Gear Solid guy too, and that's a PlayStation game.
Really?
I mean, they have it on Xbox, but
yeah.
On the PC, definitely a lot of Call of Duty. I prefer Call of Duty on the PC than on the PlayStation.
I bet you do. I play people on Call of Duty on PC. They always kill me.
Yeah.
I can never get one up on them.
So as far as my rig, it's simple. I have an i5, probably 6th generation. You'd be surprised how these i5s are actually pretty good, even the old ones. On my desktop PC, I have an AMD card. I know a lot of people go say, if you're a true gamer, it'd be NVIDIA. No, I have an AMD card. And then just enough RAM to run it. Okay. And then I have a laptop. That one has an NVIDIA card, 3050. So I'll play Call of Duty there. I bought it because I thought I was going to deploy. That way, when I'm over there and I have to reconstitute, right? Yeah. Sometimes Call of Duty can help reconstitute. But now I have 2 gaming PCs because of that. But it's cool. I'm not complaining. But they're not high end. That's all I'm saying. They're not high end.
Where did you? And I know in our previous talks, I know that you're first generation.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So we came to America. So I moved here first when I was 11 from the Philippines. At that time, it wasn't clear to me why we were here. But of course, as I grew older, kind of learned why. So my dad, when he's a lawyer, or he was a lawyer, in the Philippines, worked for the Philippine government under Ferdinand Marcos, which was, they would call him the strong man, because what happened was he figured out how he can stay president for a very long time, right? And at that time, if you worked for the government, I mean, you just worked for that government, and then we had a revolution in the Philippines, and so they exiled that president, and then we had a new president come in, our first female president, Cory Aquino. And, my dad stopped working for the government after that transition. But my dad, I guess, ran into a few people who weren't a fan of him. My dad became a Christian during law school, I believe. And then, when you work for a government like that, there's definitely a lot of corruption going on. And my dad wasn't, gonna let that happen where he can control it, right? So I think, I guess you can say he made a few enemies along the way. When the when the transition happened, you had people who kind of went after him after that.
Wow.
So, but as a kid, I had no idea what was going on because at that time the country was starting to rebuild as well. But anyway, from my understanding is when he got informed that he might be part of a list, like a no-fly list, he went ahead and, came to the U.S. And then we followed 2 months later. So for us, right, like in the Philippines, we're kind of middle class, upper middle class. Everything just like 6 luggages. So all the years that my mom and dad built that, growing up, we just had to sell everything, get everything out, sell the house, sell the car, sell the furniture, fit as much as you can in these luggages. And then we moved to the United States. As far as I'm concerned, I thought we were just going to go to Disneyland for a while, right? But we ended up living here, first in Georgia, then in California.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't imagine picking up an entire family overnight.
When I had a chance to go to, Ellis Island in New York, because you get to see kind of like the stories on people there. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm anything like those guys because, those is really hard. I mean, for us, it's an airplane ride. For them, it was a boat. You see people who probably had lived generations upon generations in Europe and then just having suitcases and then showing up to Ellis Island, and then they had to figure out what kind of work you're going to do. I'm not saying it's exactly like that, but I guess I can kind of relate, like you said.
Yeah.
Right? So, for an 11-year-old, all my toys were gone. My Nintendo was gone. My friends, you kind of had to leave behind. Your bedroom, all this stuff, because we had to start all over. It's not like my dad just could pick up and become a lawyer here and start making a lot of money. We had to, and then for the first time, because in the Philippines, it's not, at that time, it wasn't common for wives to work. That, the culture at the time. So she had to learn how to work here. She was a cashier. She worked, what do you call this? Like when they get money out for the cash registers, I think it's called a vault in the back. Like she worked, She did that. Just odd jobs here and there. My dad tried to be a lawyer out here, but it didn't work out. So he had to do odd jobs too. Like, he even worked a little bit as a general contractor, which is weird, right? In the Philippines, it's like this, big shot lawyer. And then over here, he's, laying down tile.
What?
Painting, it was definitely a life change, a big life change for us. But, that's where God wanted us to be. So we were here, lived there for almost 4 years. And then eventually when things quieted down in the Philippines, my dad moved us back, which was good as well. And he was able to rebuild. Like my dad became the top legal counsel for one of the Nissan divisions in the Philippines. And then that's where I ended up going to college for computer science.
Oh.
And then when I graduated, I wanted to come back here. So came back here, and this is where I started my career as a computer programmer.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long were you were here? So did y'all come? I have way too many questions running through my head. That's insane. So did you have to come to the U.S. as what do you call it? A political refugee?
Yeah. So I forgot to mention that. So we applied for political asylum.
Oh my.
Here. Yes. Which is crazy because sometimes my dad would have to have to go and show up to kind of defend his case. Mm-hmm. I remember one time he bought my brother. He was 4 years old. And you got a judge asking him, why do you want to live here? Right? First my brother's like, I don't know, Disneyland, But yeah, it's a process. Immigration, no matter how you feel about it, it's a process. And for us, it was a process, long process.
How do you feel about... I always pause, and then I keep reminding myself, real is actually in the title of the podcast, so we're just going to keep it real. How do you feel about the perception of what it means to be an American, or how everyone views America? Actually, I would almost say how Americans view America in the context of the world.
No, okay. So, one, a lot of people want to come here. Right? Like, no matter how you feel about the United States, a lot of people want to live here. Like I tell people, if Philippines bordered the United States, you might have an immigration problem with Filipinos, right? Because we want to be here, right?
Wow.
Because, like, for me, I wanted to be here. Like, when I moved here when I was young, I wanted to stay here. At first, I didn't want to go back to the Philippines when my dad moved us back when things quieted down. And I was actually pretty upset that he moved the family back there. I had a chance to go to college here. And I was pretty bummed out about that. But, I mean, it worked out. I think me having to experience another culture as a older teenager, adult, was great because I get to take those values here, right? But I tell you what, though, if anyone, like, I wanted, like, the first chance I got to come back here, I wanted to take it, and I took it. Because I want to be here. So to me, to kind of help answer that question, if you ask a lot of people outside the United States, I mean, they may have other countries they want to pick, but America is one of the places people want to come to. Just because of what America has to offer. And my dad knew that. My dad was very successful in the Philippines, but it's hard to guarantee that for your children. Like, obviously you can work hard.
Yeah.
You can do that here. But in America, it's a lot more common for you to succeed here because all you really need is grit. Right? In the Philippines, sometimes you need grit, connections, money. Yeah, you know, in order to, you know, and then if there is a like rags to riches story in the Philippines, it's an exception, not a rule. You know?
Really?
Yeah. Or at least from my experience. Now, things are definitely changing. We're probably talking about my 80s and 90s understanding of the Philippines, right? So, things have definitely changed there, but at least from when my dad was thinking about it. But coming here, I mean, here it's probably more the rule than the exception. I mean, how many people can come here and start with like maybe $100 in their pocket, and next thing you know, they have a business, you know, they're hiring people, or you figure out who can educate you, and next you know, you're working in that field, right? I mean, think about all those truck driving schools on commercial, right?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, they're earning well. And they're able to either invest, save money, or maybe buy the things they want. So to me, that's kind of the message America gives to the world, is that when you're here, you can make it. And for the most part, I think that's true.
That's cool. Is that why you ended up getting into the military?
So the military, actually what happened with that was when I first moved to the United States when I was 11, in Georgia, my aunt took me to an air show. And I was like, these fighter jets are awesome. And I said, one of these days, I either want to fly them or be around them. So that's when I was 11. So to me, just to see that kind of military strength is what, you know, made me into it. And plus, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of boys like that kind of stuff, like, you know, special operations. And I mean, I played Call of Duty, right? So, you know, so I think a good amount of that is there. The other part too is, I mean, one thing that you can say about America when it comes to the military, I mean, it's definitely respected because, you know, that work is respected because it's promoted as like, this is how we defend the nation. This is why our nation's able to exercise the freedoms that we have, and the military does that. And I wanted to be part of that. So one thing I definitely wanted to do when I was a kid was to serve God and country. And when the chaplaincy came up, I was like, wow, I get to do both. You know, so, you know, but I got to admit, prior to that, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. Didn't work out because I didn't have good eyes at the time. I had LASIK surgery done later on. I had an opportunity to be a communications officer, but that didn't work out either. There was a time when the Army was having a street-to-seat program on their helicopters, but my wife wasn't a big fan of me flying helicopters. I almost tried to be a firefighter for the military. That didn't work out either. But the chaplaincy was the one door that opened up, and it opened up very wide. And I'm like, Lord, is this really what you want to do with the military? And, you know, and then that's what I did.
So I don't know if you caught this when I was talking about it before, but I'm starting to believe the older I get that sometimes it's not the thing, but sometimes it is the thing that leads to the thing. Do you think that, I know we're starting to walk into the spiritual pastoral counsel session. Hang on with me, guys. I promise you're going to benefit from it. Do you think that when you have to push and push and push, maybe that's really not God's will for your life, but when it comes easy and it opens up and things just work your way, that maybe that's where God's heading you?
You know what? That's a good question, because it might be different for some people. Like, I'd like to say my story, but it doesn't always mean it's going to work out for people. So, like, let's even go back to how I came into IT. I didn't think I was going to be a computer programmer. When I graduated from high school, I had to figure out, what do I want to do? And I didn't know what I wanted to do. In fact, computer science actually wasn't my first choice. I wanted to do business.
I could see that, though.
Yeah.
I could see that.
But it wasn't because I wanted to do business. I just felt like that was a good fallback, right? In fact, computer science was my second choice. Now, when I took some exams and applications, they go, hey, we're going to give you computer science. It's like, okay, that's weird. You know, I didn't realize it was actually harder to get into computer science and business at the time. So I said, okay, I guess, you know, I mean, I didn't even really know what I wanted to do. And I thought if I took computer science, I'd be making video games. It's like, okay, I'll do that. And my freshman year, I did terrible. But I also did terrible because, you know, you're going to college for the first time and you're doing college things, right? And they definitely got in the way of my studies. But then I started thinking, like, is this really what I wanted to do? But then I decided, you know what? I'm already in it. I'm going to do it. So this kind of goes to what your question is, right? I think sometimes when you're trying to figure out what to do in life, you want clear paths to say, look, it's lighted for me, right? It's saying, go here, enter that door. But for me, at least, I'd like to say, well, I'm in it. Let's just keep doing it until I'm not doing it anymore. So that's what happened in computer science. I kept doing it and I studied, you know, I did okay in college. When I graduated, it was actually hard finding a job in the beginning, but that's also because of where I lived. When I finally moved into the Bay Area, that's where I work, Oakland, San Francisco area, then it was easy. But then I wanted to stick to it. So I stuck to it so much that I'm still doing it today. Same thing for the military chaplaincy. I didn't know I was going to do it. But the moment I got recruited, you know, and I started the process, I go, okay, I'm in it now. I'm just going to keep doing it until I'm not supposed to do it anymore.
Wow. And
same thing with the pastorate. Like, you know, our former senior pastor asked me, hey, what do you think about being a pastor? Because when I graduated with my master in divinity, he said, so you think you're called to be a pastor? Well, let me pray about it. Prayed about it. You know, I don't see God saying no. So then I got in it. And I mean, sometimes I also wonder, God, did you really call me? You know, but I'm still in it. So I'm going to keep doing it until I'm not supposed to. So that's my approach to that.
I get that. In the military, I'm assuming you do a lot of counseling.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So chaplains in the military, I mean, counseling is definitely a part of that. I would like to say a big core of what we do is, one, we definitely provide a way for worship. You know, we marry, we bury, right? We provide the First Amendment opportunities people have the right to have. So, for example, for me, I'm a Protestant Baptist Christian chaplain. So there are Protestant Baptist Christian military members, or let's just say Protestant military members. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean I only provide services for them, but it also doesn't mean I do other types of worship service outside of my faith. So part of what I do is, if I cannot provide, I accommodate. So someone says, hey, I need to do, let's say, like a holy water sprinkling for their office. Well, I can't do that because I'm not a Catholic chaplain. But I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Let me find someone who can do that for you.
People actually, I'm not trying to sound ignorant. People actually do that?
Yeah. And it's part of their freedom, of the religious freedom to express.
Okay.
Right? Like one time was a gal goes, you know, she got promoted and she said, hey, I'm in my new office. Can I have a priest come and kind of bless my office space? We're kind of like, I know the right guy for that job.
I know that's right. Okay. Have you had any, I'm assuming because of the space you're in and the field you're in, you probably had some tough conversations.
Yeah, so another thing is we definitely do, like, we're going to get to the counseling part, but another thing we do is leadership advisement.
Oh,
So, when you have military leadership, they have to consider as much as possible all sides. So, you want to look at, like, when you're looking at your troops, you want to make sure they're physically healthy, mentally healthy, socially healthy, and spiritually healthy. Now, spiritual can include not just the spirit part, but even the ethics and moral stuff and morale stuff. So that's kind of the lane of chaplains. So most of the time when I advise leadership, it's because I've already been in their units or their spaces and kind of saw like the makeup of how their troops are doing. And I'll be able to provide that, On top of that, also give kind of like the knowledge on religious background. Like here's an example. If our military is so diverse. Like, I want to make sure that gets highlighted. Our military is very, very diverse. Most diverse in the world. And let me tell you why. If you have a troop who, let's say, has a Hindu background, right? There's certain foods they cannot eat. Well, in our dining facility, there might be food there that they can't have. Well, we have to make sure they're well fed. So sometimes you have troops who come to chaplains and say, hey, I can't eat. Well, we can't have you not eat. Well, there's nothing there that I can eat. So what happens is I give that advice to our leadership and say, ma'am, sir, this is the situation. You have a troop that might not be well, physically nourished because of that, because of their faith background. So leaders will take that under advisement and make the changes they need to make. So that's an example of one of the things chaplains can do for leadership. So that's one of the counseling areas that we would have.
wow. That's really cool. I would have never thought that role in that space required so much. And I'm still blown up. You still have two other jobs you have to manage and still juggle a family.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, they're all worth it, though. Like, for me, I like people. So, anywhere where I can help people. I mean, even in software, you help people, right? Like, that's who you write software for.
Yeah.
Right? Either make their job simpler or make the customer get to the product better, whatever it is. And I've worked in all different industries in software development, whether it's e-commerce, telecom, insurance, transportation, banking, all that stuff. And software really is for people. You're trying to make process and life simpler, but still complete the task. So, and then of course, the chaplains, you're dealing with people, and pastors are dealing with people. So for me, I actually find a lot of joy. So it's not just a job for me. I feel like there's, I'm there. It's purposeful. And I think when you feel like your job has purpose, you will find ways to make it work. And then in my case with my family, because they see that purpose, they're bought in too. And because they're bought in, they find ways to move things out of our way. Not just me, them as well, right? And what I love is with my kids, they see that and they desire it too. So like right now, my oldest is starting to do more church responsibilities, school responsibilities with like he's a senior now. He likes taking in some of the freshmen, kind of helping them transition into high school. So, you definitely see you reap what you sow. So to me, I'm not saying all my fruits and vegetables are plump and full, but I'd like to say a good amount of it is, because, my family lets me do what I do, and in return, they get to also see it and do it themselves.
What do you feel like has probably been the most valuable component idea in your life that's helped you in any of those three spaces or worlds?
Well, I definitely want to give credit to my parents. Now, I grew up in a Christian home, fundamental Baptist. Independent Fundamental Baptist Home,
Glory.
right? That comes with its own set of stereotypes and stigmas.
Yeah.
But I think my dad was kind of like a hippie.
What?
Growing. I mean, he went to a very liberal university in the Philippines, kind of like your UC Berkeley. But that's where he got saved. So and he was in law, so lawyers at a young age, very idealistic and all that, and then he becomes a Christian, and then when he becomes a Christian, he ends up becoming a member in the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church. So I think what happened is there's this interesting dichotomy that's happening where he's idealistic, but then there's this very strict conservative church with very conservative Christian values, and he's trying to figure out, do I just say no to one and say yes to the other one, or is there a way to kind of, maybe there are a few things you can bring together, right? My mom was a missionary for Campus Crusade.
Wow.
Back then. So she actually traveled. She was a Christian before my dad. And, same thing with her. I mean, Campus Crusade also has, they're not as conservative as the Baptists, but there's definitely things she wants to take from that. So it's one of those things too, right? Do I just say yes to this and no to this, or no to this, yes to that? Or is there a way we can bring that stuff together? So I think, as my parents matured, they found kind of ways to bring that. Now, it wasn't always perfect, and my dad and my mom didn't always agree necessarily on how that works out, but it allowed me to critically think, right? Just because the practice of this church says you can't do it this way. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, nothing in the Bible actually says you can't do it this way. It's just you prefer it to be done that way. So that means in the gray areas, my parents have allowed me to critically think, me and my siblings to critically think through it. And by doing that, I think that's what helps with some of this stuff. Especially like now I deal with a lot of like young professionals, single young professionals. And the world they live in is not the world I grew up in or even my parents grew up in. But I can't just say, hey, because this worked for me, you do it too. No, yeah. I have to be dynamic, right? Because the things that I thought were how they should be, they're not the way things are done now. Like all this identity crisis issue stuff, it wasn't that prevalent when I started out. But it is very prevalent now. So for me to say, just pick one and go with it, that's not going to roll with people today. So you kind of have to figure out instead of just saying yes or no, if the Bible doesn't tell you can't do it that way, it's kind of like a gray area. I think there's a way where you can kind of, and I know that's very broad. Every topic you bring up, I think has to be treated differently.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm talking in broad cases here, but to me that's what helps. That's what helps me keep doing what I'm doing.
You say you work with a lot of professionals, so I'm assuming there's a particular demographic that you're usually working with. What inside of your own passion and what you really care about, what is the overall arching message that you're trying to deliver to that demographic?
Well, one, I think I have had to think about it some more, but I think just to answer your question, especially from a Christian worldview, it's stewardship. Okay? What I like about stewardship is it tells you you're not the owner, but you have to act like the owner, which means you're taking care of something for somebody else, right? Like if I give you something and I tell you, Marcellus, I care very deeply about this thing, and I trust you to take care of it. I mean, what does that make you? How does that make you feel if I do that?
Very good.
Right?
I feel cared about. Yeah.
Now that gives you a level of saying, hey, you know what? I want to take care of this thing. To me, I think that's what God has done. That's the way I view it. Like God, I'm married. I call her my wife, but I'm actually just a steward of my wife. She's been entrusted to me to take care of, and me to her. So the reason why I want to go there is because I want to remind young professionals, for example, because there's a lot of that's mine. I go, actually, you're taking care of it for somebody else.
Wow, that's good.
And if that's the case, then maybe you would have a different attitude towards it. Like take work, for instance, right? Okay, you get paid whatever amount of money. Let's just say $100,000. But that's not necessarily saying, hey, this is yours. Your company is saying like, hey, you take care of my stuff and then I'll take care of you. So both have to be good stewards as well. So as an employee, you're being asked to be a good steward of your company's resources. And then in return, the company will be a good steward of how you can take care of your resources, right? If you kind of think of it that way, you know, I'm hoping that'll improve your attitude towards work. And maybe you'll even produce. I mean, there's a Bible story about that with the parable of the steward. Mm. Each one of them were given something. Two of them said, hey, you know what? I know what kind of master I have, so I will double what he's given me. And then you have a third one that says, I'm going to just hide this. I'm going to just keep it because I don't want to lose it. And what happened was the master ended up saying, hey, you know what kind of master I am. You could have at least put this in the bank to earn just a little bit of interest. But it looks like you don't care about my business. And that's why he was treated the way he was, right? To me, with the way I work, I know what the company is expecting me to do. So I will produce. And in return, they say, hey, you know what? Because you've doubled or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think I've doubled the company's earnings, but,
Yeah.
you know, but because you have been a good steward of what I'm trying to accomplish, because the purpose of business is profit, right?
Yep.
I'm going to share this profit with you. And now they're being a steward. They're being a good steward of what I'm trying to accomplish as well. So stewardship is a big thing for me.
In the spirit of realness, this week, there were some major tech companies that laid off a few thousand employees. What advice would you give to any of those who I'm starting to see, HR professionals, people with extreme technical backgrounds? What advice would you give to them as they transition and hopefully transition out of a difficult season in their life?
Okay. I mean, what I would say is, at least from my experience, and this may not sound as Christian, right? Okay.
Ooh.
But you better be ready to take care of yourself.
Say it again.
Be ready to take care of yourself.
Oh.
Now, before you start sounding like, man, that seems so selfish. Well, this is what I tell people, though. If you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else.
Amen.
Okay. So for me, like I remember when I first started out, I wanted to make sure I at least had 2 years of work experience before even attempting to look at anything. The sad thing is, my first job, I got laid off a year and a half into that job.
Ouch.
So I didn't even get 2 years. And I was so worried too. And plus, that was when the .com crashed. Mm-hmm. So now you have like all these programmers who are willing to work for cheap, right? And we're not even talking about just like people like me. There's people who like maybe work 5-10 years in the industry. Here's me a year and a half. And I'm doing everything I can to make my resume look like I changed the world, right? Looking back, I probably should have just been more real in my resume, because, you know, if you try to market yourself something you're not, you'll pay for that, right? But anyway, one thing I did do even a year and a half, I took in anything I could take. Software I've never touched before, business processes that I've never learned about. I learned about sales during that time because the software I wrote was for sales and marketing. So I learned about sales and marketing. And that was very interesting. It was great to know. So take in as much as you can. Like, take care of you. Like I said, I'm not saying that in a selfish way. But if you have the idea that if you're good, then you can take care of others too. Right? That's the attitude I've taken. Another thing too is learn some skills that could be a fallback. So one thing that I knew I did well was typing. And I don't know if I could do this now, but I used to type like 80 plus words per minute.
Wow.
So when that happened, when I got laid off, some of the jobs I looked for was data entry, right? And at that time, data entry, I know it sounds small now, but data entry was like $12 an hour, $15 an hour, and that was good. And that was in California too, right? So, and even if it's, and you know that's not your permanent job. See, I think the problem we have sometimes is we think, hey, this is all I can do, pay me more. It's like, no, that should be just a stepping stone to the next thing, or a fallback, right? I do know a little bit of general contracting, so I know how to lay some tile, I know how to paint, I know all that stuff. So make sure you're diverse. Your portfolio and skills are diverse. And even for me in software development, diverse as well. Like I know how to do data, I know how to do, middleware, websites, I can do all that stuff. So that way, when I go somewhere, I could be like a generalist. Like I can do different things. And what I like about software development, you learn about the industry that you're in. So I'm not saying I'm just a programmer. So I've written programs for accounting systems. So I know accounting. I mean, I'm not saying I'm an accountant, but I know accounting, right? I've done software for insurance companies. So now I know how insurance works to a degree. Financials. So now I know how banking systems works. Transportation. Now I know. So I don't just write software. I learn how that business operates.
Wow.
So for the people who are going to go through this, season where layoffs are going to happen, make sure you take in as much as you can. Because maybe you may not work in that field that you were in, but at least now you're more knowledgeable. And maybe you'll do something else.
I remember, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I remember when the company went under and my position was eliminated, and I went through a season of humility.
Yeah.
And I took a job that was well beneath my skill set. And I remember talking to my pastor, my mentor at the time. And I remember him saying, be obedient and just do the work. And come to find out, it was in that season where I just did the job, and it was probably one of the biggest come-ups I've ever had in my career. And I will never forget that. Don't despise small beginnings. Has it ever happened to you where you were humble and obedient, and it was really, really beneficial to your life?
I mean, more than once, for sure. After I got laid off, I tried to do data entry. And then the job placement company I was in said, hey, you know how to program? I go, yeah. So I got connected with this guy who was working for one of the big telecom companies. And he said, hey, what we're doing right now is we're testing cell phones. It is cell phones, like your flip phones, at that time. So we're not talking about smartphones. And they're like, we're trying to install software so that 911 can pick them up. Because at that time, 911, if you dial, they're looking for an address, right? Well, at that time, when you have a cell phone, you could be wherever. So they're trying to figure out if they can do software for 911. Yeah. In this case, they called it quadrangulate. It's basically 3 reference towers and then 1 tower to kind of find where you are inside those 3 towers.
Wow. Okay.
And I go, cool. What do I do? All right, you're going to basically drive somewhere. We're going to give you these phones and you're going to dial 911.
What?
Yeah, but they were paying me like $20 an hour. So it's a lot bigger than the $12, $15 that you did for data entry. But yeah, so at that time they gave me a laptop, and then you connect a GPS unit to it. So the laptop had maps in it, and you would put kind of this thing on top of your car, and it would tell you where your GPS coordinates were. So this is before like all this other navigation stuff. And they go, all right, you may not be able to get to the place, but you just want to be as close as you can. Because some of it would be like in the middle of a park, might be next to a dumpster, So I would drive my car, and I would have these cell phones, and I'd stop there, and I'd just start dialing 911, let it sit there for like a minute or two, hang up, do it again, do it for like an hour or two, right? And then I would collect that data that came up and send it up to the engineer so they can evaluate it. And what was weird at that time too is, so I could be somewhere and I look like this like super weird guy in a car, like just calling cell phone. So I had a piece of paper in case the cops came up and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing right now. You know, because like one time I was in a park, like kids are playing and I'm just sitting there like dialing these phones.
No.
And I did have a cop come up to me.
Oh.
And I go, officer, this is what I'm doing. So the piece of paper goes, okay, cool. And then, I mean, he walked away. You know, he didn't ask any more questions. But
What state was this in?
this is in California.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm like, this is not what I went to college for.
Yeah.
Right? But you know what? I go, okay, well, let's just do it. And eventually I got, so how I kind of got back into programming, I got to see these reports they were generating to see how well the software was doing. And I'm like, how long does it take you guys to generate these reports? Well, you know, we have to do this, compile it, blah, blah, blah. And because sometimes I might wait for a week before I go back out in the field and dial again, right? And I was working hourly. I had to make sure I always had a job. So I told the guy who was kind of handling that contract, I go, hey, would you be okay if I write some software to kind of make these reports go a lot faster? He goes, yeah, sure, go ahead. And you know what? If you're working on that, charge it to me. So he was really great. I remember his name. I'll just give the first name. His name was Clem. I mean, that's how influential that guy was to me going back into programming, right? So I wrote these reports. Like I built a database, I wrote code, and then they would get dumped into Excel. And so when I give the reports back to the engineers, I also gave my report back to the engineers. And they were like, yo, how did you do this? Like it was fast. They don't have to like wait days for the data to be compiled. I go, you know, you guys provided the formulas, I generated and went back. Goes, yo, keep doing this, right? Keep doing this. Well, when the program was about to end, Clem offered me a job, but I had to move to San Diego. So I kind of turned it down. But the point I'm trying to get to that is, I stuck to that. I mean, I'm telling you, that was a weird job. And plus, I didn't have a nice car when I drove to these neighborhoods. I had a 91 Honda Civic, not even like top of the line. It was like the black bumpers, paint is fading, the windows, you have to do this, right? And so I looked like a creep in some of these neighborhoods I would drive up just dialing 911. And I'm like, I did not spend 4 years and to get my computer science degree just to do this. But you know what? I stuck with it though. And then I ended up getting recognized, not because I was looking for it, but because I wanted to be a good steward of this responsibility. And it ended up getting recognized. And that brought me back in to software development after being out of a job for like 8 months after being laid off.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What's on the horizon for you? What's next?
You know what? That's probably the question I'm asking right now too.
Oh.
Well, because I like what I do. So then why, you know, there's part of you that says, why murky that? I like software development. Like right now I'm leading software developers. I like it a lot because I know I miss software development though, but I have this kind of motivation of wanting to help other developers get to where they need to be, especially the junior guys. Like people who just graduated or maybe just young in their careers, because people did that for me, right? I remember my first job, I had this guy, my first boss, and he's from Australia. I could hardly understand half the stuff he was talking about because I couldn't catch up to that Australian accent, you know, but he was a good manager and he helped me that whatever work I did there, you know, that 911 job that I was doing.
Yeah.
I was able to port that into that job.
Wow.
Because that's how I knew what they were looking for, because I did a lot of data reporting in that previous job. So because they took care of me, I was able to do this here. Right. And then my next job, I had another boss. I worked for a .com. I was employee number 13.
Oh.
Right. And that boss of mine, we're still friends. He even admitted me, you weren't my first choice.
Uh-oh.
The girl, the girl who applied ended up declining, so we were number 2 choice.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay. But what I loved about him was because it was a different programming language I never touched before. And his thing to me was, it doesn't matter. If you know how to program, we'll figure it out. So he took a chance on me, right? And that was probably another humbling work experience. Like we worked in an old Mason building, like really old building. And even the electricity to the building wasn't set up right. Like when they added me, we started having electrical issues because I had like 3-4 computers running at the same time. And what's funny was there are two sides of the building. Yeah, there was a lady just down the cubes. She had a toaster in her cube. Mm-hmm. And every time she would pop that toaster, the electricity on that side of the building would go out.
What?
Yeah, that's how old this building was.
Oh.
Right? It's kind of like, so I'd code and all of a sudden my computer would just go out. And I would lose half my work.
Oh, no.
Right? But, I mean, it was one of those like systems where you build from a garage and now you're slowly building the company. Like I said, I was employee number 13. It turns out the internet we had was only good for 10 people. So later on, it was like, why is it so slow? But it was nice to be a part of that, though. Like you were part of a growing company, right? But the point of me bringing that up is I had people who were willing to invest in me. And then the next job, the same thing. The next job, the same thing. So right now, when you're asking about what next at Horizon, I want to be able to be that for somebody. One that says, I'm going to invest in you so that you can be where you need to be, right? And my 2 other jobs do that naturally, as a chaplain, as a pastor.
Yeah.
So when you're asking me what's next, I go, I don't know. Maybe I'll enjoy where I'm at right now. Like maybe I don't need to rock the boat so much. I'll just enjoy where I'm at while it's still there. And then maybe the moment God says, you're going to do something else, all right, then I'll do that. Like, I don't think I have to constantly look. Like, if I'm content right now, what else will I be looking for? Yeah. So I'm very content with where I'm at right now. I think my biggest focus is just, making sure my kids continue to move where they need to move to. So like I said, my oldest about to go to college. I want to be there for him as he does that. And then my second son is about to go into high school. So I want to make sure he's good to go on that one. And I got a little girl, so got to make sure the princess is taken care of, right? So maybe, I don't know if that really answers that.
No, it does.
I'm probably just content right now, and I don't want to murky it. Now, obviously, God could be like, well, let's rock the boat a little bit. So kind of going back to what I said a while ago, then I better be prepared. What? Take what I can now so that when God rocks that boat, I'm not caught surprised.
Amen to that. Okay. Well, I don't know if you've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. Daniel, it's been a pleasure and an honor listening to your wisdom and advice. I mean, I think I have a lot that I can chew on for a good while. If you liked this episode, please like, share, comment, give it to your mama, your papa. Also, before the crew look at me funny sideways, we are on Spotify. Go listen to the Spotify channel. We'll catch you guys next time.